Hi, and welcome to Turing Company, the mother-daughter podcast about everything. Our mission is to make herstory, aka history, not by going viral, but by doing something that has never been done before in our family. Whether we have 2 listeners or 2 million listeners, we are bringing you our very best, and hopefully we are learning and growing together in the process. Now let's enter into the Turing Company experience and create herstory, aka history, together. Hello, and welcome to Turing Company. I am your host, Tura, and I am joined by
Ariel
and
Chelsea.
And we welcome you to the Are You the Bigger Person episode. If you're not familiar with our podcast, we'll tell you a little bit about ourselves. What we are here to do is we are 3 women from 2 different generations here to give you guys thought-provoking topics. We want to send you away. Even if you're not changed, we want you to know that there's another way to think about something. And we're going to talk about those things today. So in our topic today, we're tackling, are you the bigger person? I'm going to start because I'm not usually the bigger person. And when I say that, I want everybody, listen, get y'all judgy eyes off of me because I'm not to be judged. But what I mean by that, when I say I'm not the bigger person, is when I'm talking to you or when I say something to you, I've said everything that I wanted to say. I didn't hold nothing back. So if you didn't get everything that you wanted to get out to me, then I'm sorry. But I don't usually have to go back and be the bigger person. I don't usually have to go back and compromise because I've said it. And I try to get what you need to give me out of you during that time. If you can't give me that, I'm sorry, then you got to be the bigger person because you're the one that's going to have to come back to me and say, I thought about it. Maybe you were right. Or maybe I was wrong. I don't mind being wrong. But that are you the bigger person thing, like apologizing when you haven't done anything wrong. For what? For what? Chelsea, what you think?
Now, see me, I usually am the bigger person. Just because I'm very non-confrontational. I think that's the Capricorn in me, but best believe in my head, I'm giving you some words or a whole nother scenarios playing down in my head. But you know what? Recently, I've been thinking, and I just don't think I want to be the bigger person anymore. I just think, kind of like how you said, it makes people think of you as not necessarily in my eyes like a punk, but it just makes them think, oh, okay, she let me get away with this. And that was kind of crazy. I bet you I can get away with more. Or let me see what more I can get away with. And to me, I'm just tired of it. So I'm just so over being the bigger person.
So you think it might open the door. And I agree with this. You think it might open the door for someone to think that they can get over on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And and it's a balance, right? Let's talk about it. It's a balance. There's a balance between sometimes you do just got to suck it up and you know what, to settle the situation, say, you know what, you say this, I say that, let's agree to disagree and move on. Mm-hmm. And that to me is not necessarily being a bigger person. It is because in a sense you were big enough to say, let's go ahead and settle it. But as far as being the bigger person and apologizing, we're not doing that today. Ariel, what you think?
I tend to be the bigger person. But I say that in the sense that if I'm even taking the time to go back and forth with you about something, it's because I know I'm right. I don't argue topics or situations where I haven't thought it through in the first place. So I've already looked at it from both perspectives. So I'm not going to sit by and say, I know that you're right or I know that you're wrong. I'm just going to let you, think that you're right. I don't do that because I don't think that's a good look. And just like Chelsea said, when you leave that open or when you take on the part of the bigger person, it leaves it open for people to say, oh, I was able to get over on this person.
But I thought you said you do try to be the bigger person most of the time.
I do.
Okay.
When I'm right. I don't.
So I need to understand that when you're right, why do you got to be the bigger person?
Right. Because I feel like if you're right, then then you know you're right.
Sometimes, and I've come in contact with this a lot. A lot of people, not a lot, but some people that I've come in contact with, I'll say something and I'll know I'm right and they'll know I'm right. However, they're too stubborn to see that I'm being right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you look at a 9 and a 6, one person says, oh, it's a 6. And I'm saying, oh, it's a 9.
Mm-hmm.
One person can be clearly right, but the other person is too ignorant to see it.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. In that scenario,
right,
you're not the bigger person. You're just right. So I think you need to take it a little step further. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, how do you solve it? Because the person is being, they know they're wrong, but they're trying to make themselves right. How do you come out being the bigger person in that scenario?
Well, to be the bigger person, you're saying, I'm not going to continue to argue with you about this. I'm not going to let the emotions of this get the better of me. Mm-hmm. If you want to believe that you're right about a scenario or about a situation, even though you're wrong, I'm going to let you do that because I know the truth and I know what's actually going on. That to me is being the bigger person and letting the person, although they probably are wrong in that case, in that situation, not letting the situation get the better of my emotions and letting that kind of bring me up to their level.
But are you going to apologize?
No.
Well, then you're not being the bigger person.
Then I guess I'm not the bigger person.
Because being the bigger person means you apologize. It means, well, I ain't even going to say it means you apologize, but it means you went back and made it right. That's what being the bigger person is. It's basically saying, I know I'm right. I know I did what was right in the situation, but let me squash it. And you go to the person and say, you know what? I think I was right. You think you were right. Let's squash it. That's what being the bigger person is. So if you are,
I've never had to do that.
It could possibly be true because you don't have a boyfriend right now in your life. These typically, and I think the reason why this came up for Chelsea is it's usually dealing with relationships, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a relationship thing. And right now with you not being in a relationship, I'm wondering when you were in a relationship, when you were in college, did you have these moments and you forgot about them right now? Because I'm sure you had them. Because Daniel, I hate to mention his name, my bad. Because he used to seem like he used to want to be right a lot, and you used to seem like you used to want to be right. So was he always the bigger person? Like, what happened?
That's a good question. So you're right. I did have to be the bigger person and apologize. But the problem with that is I don't, now that you bring that up, I don't think I like being the bigger person.
Yeah.
I think I can be the bigger
ding,
person.
Ding, 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 ding.
But I don't think I like it very much because I think it's one thing if both parties apologize for the parts that they do wrong, because in any situation, no one's 100% like right. No one's 100%. You both say wrong things or bad things.
Right.
But I don't think it's right to say, to admit your fault doings and not have the other person admit the parts that maybe hurt your feelings or the things that they say that were just wrong.
But they're not. That's why it's called being the bigger person. So the whole concept of this is the other person is probably never going to acknowledge it. But you're saying, you know what? Even if this person never acknowledges what just happened here, I'm going to step up, squash it, and be the bigger person. That is literally what it is. And so the reason why I said that I am not often the bigger person is because I don't always want to go back to a person that I know I'm right with. And it's not necessarily that they're wrong. I don't even want to paint that picture like the person is wrong. I really want to say going back, it's almost like you just got to salvage the relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's like you got to go, even if now this doesn't even have to be boyfriend girlfriend relationship, girlfriend relationship, boyfriend relationship. This is friendships. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes friendships put you in this predicament where you're talking and something comes up, and then next thing you know, you're in a heated discussion. somebody has to make the decision to squash it. I mean, we do it all the time as a family. We'll get all passionate about what we're talking about, and you guys will say what you're saying. I'll say what I'm saying. And whether you realize it or not, when you stop it, sometimes it ain't even about apologizing. Sometimes when you just stop the conversation and say,
that's why I'm always just like, okay.
And you just let it go.
Just let it go.
Yeah, I don't let it go a lot.
True.
I know. I think y'all know that. Yeah, I'm not a let her goer. So for me, as far as how I do things, I'm not always the bigger person. Now, let me tell you, not being the bigger person comes with its ramifications. Am I saying that right, Erin? You are a wordsmith, because sometimes I say wrong words. Ramifications.
Conditions?
Consequences. Yes. So not being the bigger person comes with consequences, because guess what? I lose lots of relationships, right? I have lost lots of friends over the years, people who I do not speak to because I wasn't the bigger person. But that, for me, I am willing to sacrifice it. Some people are not. I am. And I'm not even saying that it's a good thing. Let's be real clear. I'm not saying that it's a good thing to have friends and walk away from them over disagreements or over things that I think I'm right or things that they think they're right. I'm not by any means telling anybody to do that, because it's not a good thing, right? It's not a good thing at all. But what I am saying is, to thine own self be true. You know how you are, right? And if somebody is pushing your buttons, doing that thing that I hate that thing where you're talking to somebody and they say to you, well, you're just, and they paint you as this person that you're not. Have you guys experienced that?
Yes.
Oh my God. I hate that. So when that keeps happening, so if we're getting in a dispute or we're even just a conversation and you're like, you know what, you always do this or you always do that, and you know that that's not your personality because you know yourself, that's a person trying to portray, or what is it, Ariel? What am I trying to say?
No, you're using the right
that's a person trying to portray
or
project. That's the word I was looking for. Project their thoughts onto you. You know who you are. You woke up as you. Don't let people tell you who you are. So when you know who you are in your reflection time, sometimes there's been times where I've not been the bigger person, and in my reflection time said, you know what, you were wrong. You were dead flat wrong. And I've gone back to those people. Now, by this time, you got to watch feelings, because now feelings are involved, right?
Yes. So
once those feelings get in there, what happens? We're done.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the things. I want to be real clear. I don't want anybody listening to this podcast to think, oh, Atura is just out here macking. Macking all her friends. No, I'm not macking all my friends. I'm macking and not being a bigger person sometimes.
Can you give
and
our
losing
younger
friends.
generation
What is macking?
what that is?
I was going to ask that, but I was a little bit too scared.
Yeah.
Okay, macking is like, okay, so these are slang, so bear with me. So macking is like, let me see, how can I describe this? Macking. I'm not out here just being the bomb person. Does that make sense? Is that
toxic?
better?
Is it?
No, not toxic. Macking is like a guy. When I was growing up, Macking was like a guy who had all the girls, and he just was smooth, and so you would call him the Mac because he was just smooth, and he had 4 different girls, and
so an F
sometimes
boy.
What?
So an F boy.
Maybe. But macking is a term because you let me be macking them hoes is what it is to me. But I'm saying, but you can use it in other forms, because macking is just macking. What you're just ruling. That's what it is. It's kind of like you're ruling that situation,
or you're playing the game.
But you ruling the game. So in my my example, I said I'm not out here macking. Like, I don't want y'all thinking I'm just out here like got friends and I'm just throwing them by the wayside and they coming back to me. I really want to be clear that I've lost a lot of friends over the years. Not sometimes by my own not being a bigger person, sometimes by them not being a bigger person. Cause I'm like, I'm not about to go to you. I'm not about to chase you. It's just, So with that being said, Ariel, what you got anything else you want to give the people regarding this topic?
So Ariel has learned a very valuable lesson. She is not.
Who is Ariel? Why are you talking to you? Why are you talking about yourself in third person?
For our listeners,
are you Ariel?
Yes, I am. But for our listeners who they're trying to recognize us.
Oh, okay.
This is narration so that they can, we can tie up that part of it.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I can be the bigger person, but I don't think I like to be the bigger person.
Now, see, I'm just going to give you observation that I see about you. I see you being the bigger person a lot. And I often wonder, are you trying to be the bigger person so you can be liked? What do you think about that? Because that does play into it. Sometimes you're the bigger person or try to be the bigger person because you're like, you know what? If I'm the bigger person, I can squash this. And people are like,
and they'll come back.
Yeah,
they'll come back.
Yeah,
I can keep them there in my life, and I don't have to worry about them leaving because I know if I just put this aside, they're gonna like me.
So interestingly enough, it's funny that you say that. Mm-hmm. In the situations that I'm thinking about, where I had to be the bigger person and let things go, those people did not come back. And the reason I say that they did not come back is because usually something happened later down the line where I had an excuse to cut them off and then never talk to them again. A good example is, like you said, the ex-boyfriend of college. I did have to be kind of, not to talk about it too much, but I did kind of have to be the bigger person, I felt like, a lot of the time. And then that ended. I had some friendships where I had to be the bigger person, and then those things ended. I've had people that I've worked with in the past that they did things at work that I didn't like, and I had to be the bigger person, and then I never had to interact with them again. So I don't do it to be the bigger person. I do it as an excuse to not have to interact with that person again, if that makes sense. I leave it, I let it go. I know how to interact with that person moving forward. Because usually when I end up having to be the bigger person, they show me who they are, right? They show me kind of how they react to certain situations and how especially they react when they think that they're right. So if you are the kind of person that when you're right about something, you need people to know that you are right and you are kind of a sore winner.
Yeah.
I know how to interact with you in the future, and I'm just going to step away from you. Like, it's easy. It's
so
not
you
hard
won't
for me.
necessarily reconcile it. You'll just be like, yeah, I ain't feeling you. I'm done. And that's kind of what I do. So you are my child. You're seeing me do it. So you're doing it.
Yeah. And it's fine to be the kind of person that says, I agree to disagree, and then just not really mess with that person anymore. That's
and
fine.
It depends on the strength of the relationship. Wouldn't you say, Chelsea? It depends.
Yes.
Because sometimes I'm not about to chase Sally Sue down the street. You ain't nothing to me.
Or, I might see you in the Walmart and just, be the bigger person and not cuss you out. And in the Walmart.
What if you go to Walmart and you see a person that you're not speaking to at that moment, or
walk away?
You might have had listen. Don't be rude. You see the person and you know that y'all not speaking. Do you speak?
No.
Now, see, that's different. Now,
no, what you do?
I would be the bigger person. Now, that's how I would be the bigger person. I'm not going to conversate with you, but if I pass you, if I see you in my space, I'll say, hey. No, I'm not going to say much more. Oh, okay.
Don't walk past me.
But we haven't, but think about it, Ariel. I'm not saying we fail all the way out. Mm-hmm. This is just somebody that we didn't fall out all the way. We don't get along. So, like the scenarios that I'm thinking about are kind of work scenarios, right? Mm. Because people who are friends, why would you do that? But like work scenarios, I've had work scenarios where I've had like disagreements with people and didn't get quite along with people at work. But then you see them out, there's nothing rude about me. Like, I'm not a rude person. So if I see you, I'm not going to go across the room to speak to you. But if you're, perfect example, you at Walmart and you're standing in line in front of me. I didn't catch it because I wouldn't have got in that line if I'd have known it was you. But if I'm standing behind you at Walmart and you somebody I really don't mess with, I'll be like, hey, because I'm not rude. Because to me, it's a difference between now you crossing the line of being rude. Because like that not speaking thing, we're gonna have stay tuned because we're gonna have a show about that not speaking thing, that going to work and being in the office and not saying good morning. We're gonna talk about it, but not this episode. But I just think that I would speak. Would you speak, Chelsea?
I think, like you said, depends on the situation, depends on what happened between me and that person. But, depending on, because at the end of the day, the way I am, I want you to know that I see you and I want you to see me. Because depending on what's going on in the situation, that could spark a conversation. Because I'm the type of person, Ariel likes to say that I hurt my own feelings, but like, I like...
Dang, you be macking. See, that's macking. That is an example of macking.
No, let's clarify. She will ask questions that she knows that the answer will hurt her feelings.
But like, I'm also big on closure, and I know it doesn't exist, but I just want to see, because if I'm the type of person, if I don't know how a situation is going to play, or if I don't get an ending to how a situation is, I'm going to create 10,000 scenarios in my head.
Yes.
Every day.
That's
like,
everybody.
There's going to be a new scenario.
Everybody.
Yeah.
That's why people can't get back together, because you done created a whole scenario.
Right.
Like, I bet you they said, I bet you she said, I bet you she did that.
Right.
Like you'll create a whole, but isn't it funny? Like, I'm so glad you brought that up, because isn't it funny that we're talking about creating a scenario? How often do you create a positive scenario? How many times do you say, you know what? I bet you they meant to do right by me, but just didn't. It never happens, does it? I know it never happens.
It's very rare.
If you wanted to do
but
right by me,
we need to start doing
would.
it. No, but you know what? We need to start thinking higher of people. Because how many times have you had a disagreement with somebody? This just recently happened to me. Had a disagreement with somebody, and then some kind of way y'all get back together, y'all start talking again, and you start talking about the thing that happened. And then you're saying what your brain thought, and they're saying what their brain thought, and you're like so far away, and you come to the conclusion that neither one of y'all had bad intentions. Because I usually don't have bad intentions, but I think my brain
thinks that the other person doesn't have good intentions,
so I just go with it. Choo choo.
I think personally that people have intentions that they think are good for themselves, right? So we always do what we think is best, just in general, either if it's best for us, best to maintain the relationship, what's best for maybe the environment, but they think that they do whatever that they did was the best that they could. So to me, if you're doing the best that you can, however that is, and it still affects me in a negative way, that's not a good thing for me. But I do agree that there is a spectrum when it comes to those kinds of situations. I agree that there's like many different avenues that you can go down. I understand that. But at the same time, we all do what's best for us, or what we think is best, not necessarily best for us, but what we think is best.
But best is relative. So
yes.
let's be real.
Yes.
Best is relative.
Agree, yes.
And what I mean by that is I can say best and mean one thing. You can say best and mean one thing. And Chelsea can say best and mean one thing. It comes from the environment that you're in. What I'm talking about is those moments. And I know a lot of people have had them where you've built something totally up in your head. Like it just recently happened to me with my best friend. Like I felt like she didn't give me, I told her something and I felt like she didn't give me the energy that I wanted her to have about this thing. And I said, in my mind, I hung up the phone and in my mind, I immediately was like, oh, well, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. And then I talked to her a couple of days later, and then she was like, well, what about it? And I was like, well, we're not doing it because I felt like you ain't want to go. And she's like, what are you talking about? So I was totally off base because I had built up a scenario in my brain. I thought when I mentioned what I mentioned, that she was going to jump up and down through the phone and be like, oh, I'm there. And she was just like, yeah, cool. You know, it was a low energy and I wanted it to be a high energy. Was that her fault? No.
It was yours.
It usually is when it comes to that person. So, I will say, I had to be the bigger person. No, does she have to be the bigger person dealing with me? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah,
probably, most likely.
To be the bigger person. Okay, we're gonna get off of that though. So yeah, I am thinking that being the bigger person, you know what, it's gonna vary. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, it's got its pros and cons. You know,
it definitely has its pros and cons. One of the things that I want to express is you don't ever want anybody walking over you. If you're in a situation where you're always having to compromise or be the bigger person, look and assess in your reflection time. Find out, is it worth it? Because guess what? A person that's in your life to be in your life, they want you to be the bigger person. And they're not going to even tempt you with this foolishness. They want you to win. Think about that. Do you have people in your life that want you to win? Or do you got people in your life that's fighting you on every turn that's making you always have to be the bigger person? Those are people in relationships that you need to review and figure it out. Like, do I want to keep going with this? Or let's put this out there. It's not even necessarily do or don't do. Guess what? It could be pulled back because sometimes that person might have took up a slot that they didn't deserve. They might have took up bestie slot. They might have took up closer than what they should have been. They took up a friend slot that they really should have probably been an associate, right?
Or an acquaintance.
Yeah, do your reflection time. And in that reflection time, if the person is not,
they got more cons than pros, it's time to reevaluate.
Then it's time to reevaluate them. And do they need to go 100%? Some people need to go. Some people need to be moved back a couple of notches, associate, acquaintance, coworker. I don't know what you call it, but you just might not be giving me what I need to get from you, So you have to evaluate that relationship. If you always got somebody that's tempting you and pressuring you to be the bigger person or putting you in that situation, then you got to evaluate that. And it might not be a relationship that can go further. Can't grow, right? Mm-hmm. Y'all got any wrap-up thoughts?
If you see me in the streets, you're done.
Wait a minute.
In the words of Rico Nasty. A couple more explicit words in there.
I don't need your opinion.
You bet not put those explicit words in there.
But no, I just think like we pretty much covered it. It depends on the situation, but it all depends on how you, in your head, think that person's going to view you by being the bigger person and how you view yourself. Like if you are going to compromise yourself, by being the bigger person, then don't do it. Do what you want to do.
Right. I get that. So, Ariel, you got anything? Any last words for us for this topic?
I'm trying to think of positive situations where you should be the bigger person.
Yeah, well, we don't have to. I mean, sometimes it just ain't none. I mean, I think sometimes it is what it is. So my bottom line is you can choose to be the bigger person or not. It does not make you a good or a bad person. If you do what you feel is right, then it leaves you being true to yourself. Let's get back to being true to ourselves and honoring the person in us rather than bending to make someone else feel better. We got to start thinking of self just a bit more. Not talking about self-centered or being self-centered, but just keeping that balance and making sure we're healthy and whole. What do you think? Feel free to hit us up with your thoughts on our Instagram, Tour & Company. We would love to know what you think about this topic. And we're going to leave you with this. We hope your week is filled with good news and positivity. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode. Until then, be inspired and enlightened.